Samson, Adamson. Okay, let me go with BC. BC, can you introduce yourself, where you are joining us from, and what you currently do?
Morning, everyone. Um, it's Adamson, not Samson. Anyway,
Yeah.
I am a data analyst, Lagos, Nigeria, and I work remotely as a data analyst too.
Wow. So
Yeah,
you are working both with a Nigeria company and a foreign company.
I don't work for Nigeria now, Yankee company.
Wow. So you are not feeling T-pain at all. That's good.
No go feel I don't understand. Hey, because of the same market we dey go.
You are not feeling T-pain at all. That's good.
I'm feeling it now. Of course, the only
You're
difference is going
welcome.
to be the level at
You
which
said what?
we I'm feeling it. It's just the level at which we all feel it. That's what differs.
Yeah. I mean, you have something to cushion the effect. That's good. Welcome to Room 4. Temi Dayo, where are you joining us from and what do you do currently?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is not actually TV Dayo. I'm so sorry. It's the person, a friend of mine, logged in her Zoom. My name is actually
Oh,
Andepu Daniel. I am from Abuja, Nigeria. I am a data scientist. I'm not working. I'm looking for gigs right now, but you know, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
that's good. You're welcome. I mean, it's some sort of ways for us to also network. Uh, BC is, a remote person, so he can obviously like link you up or connect you with communities that we help and all of that. Before our speaker would start, I think it's time already. So you can just drop in the chat box where you are joining us from, what you do, and your name. So our first speaker will be talking now. Let me quickly make him a co-host. So yeah, over to you, Mr. Balogun. Let me stop sharing.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm trying to put my screen up. Just give me a minute. Let me know once you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, good morning, everyone. It's good to be here, and it's good to meet you on this side. It's good to meet you, I would say. So just a quick introduction about myself. I'm Balogun David Taiwo. I currently work with a clean tech energy company, Payipo. And what I work to basically is business intelligence. I lead the business intelligence team. And before joining PayPal, I'd worked with some quite number of companies, the likes of Dodger, a startup company, and Lydia, basically. And I've had the opportunity to work on some fantastic projects with some organizations like FCMB, Nasarawa State Government, and outside the shore of Nigeria also. And one thing I majorly do again outside of my work is mentorship and teaching, right? And I've had the opportunity of mentoring people across Europe, Africa, Code First Girls in London, um, Neo Bootcamp also in Birmingham, and I've also worked with the likes of Tech for Dev here in Nigeria. So I'm going straight into what we'll be doing today, basically. So today we'll be looking at continuous learning strategy. Can I change the way my screen is? Okay. Continuous learning strategy for AI and data professional, right? So more or less like a guide, yeah, for your advanced practitioner. One thing you would all agree with me is trying to juggle work and learning together. Most times, trust me, it can be very difficult or taxing. And I'm going to share a practical experience when I started my whole journey. I started immediately after COVID. So I started learning before COVID, but COVID came and everyone had to sit at home and all that. So immediately after COVID, I think 2020, COVID was 2020, yeah. So 2021, I think I got a job and it's this kind of come to the office job, Yeah, I work fully remote now, but then, I mean, when you're starting out, you would literally see most of all this on-site job. come to the office and all that. Right. So one major challenge for me was learning. Right. Learning. How do I mean learning? Because I don't have time literally. I wake up as early as 7, I come back as late as 8, I'm tired and all that. There is no time, to be fair. But one thing I tell myself is I have to keep learning. So one strategy I have to put in place is I go with the BRT bus. I stay around Magodo. Then, so BRT bus at 7 up to the island marina side. I'm always with my laptop. I plug my ear. I'm learning. Maybe I'm writing code or I'm on SQL or anything I'm just learning. I just make sure I'm using that 1 hour, 30 minutes or 2 hours I'm using to commit to work, to learn. And it was very effective for a very long time. Same thing when I'm coming back home, I do the same thing. So in as much I know most times we are always trying to juggle 2, 3 jobs together and like there's no time to learn, there's no time to learn. You have to just make those conscious practice, not even in the age of advancements in technological tools and all that. So I won't want to bore us with so much of story. I will just go straight to the slides here. So this is more or less like the agenda. 30 minutes is short, so I'll try and be at a faster space, and I'm sure you all have the slides basically, and there will be room for questions definitely. Okay. So as we all know, the AI and data science field is a revolving field. What do I mean by revolving? It's growing at a very, very fast pace, basically. And if you are not fast enough, like one of my friends will always say, they would leave you behind. So genuinely, you have to be fast, right? In terms of your pace in learning and adapting, basically, you have to be fast, basically. And I'm going to lay more emphasis on learning. You have to be fast in your pace of learning. One good example I give to people is there's a time I was to work on a project and they were like, can you use this particular tool for visualization and all that? I've never interacted with that tool. All I had to do basically was to tell them, yes, I can use the tool, basically. And I had to go into YouTube and just search for, browse for 1 or 2 video, basically. And I was able to get the project. I was able to work on it and I did fantastic on it, right? So one skills, I think, which is being undermined most times is your learning skills. So how fast can you learn on the job? How fast can you adapt to what you are learning? And how fast are you in relearning something and learning again? I think that's one of the major important things we don't put into play most times.
Balogun,
Yeah.
yeah, can you click on the slideshow so that we are able to see
Okay.
the, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just give me a minute. Thank you to do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So is it better now?
Yes, good. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I don't use Zoom. I don't like using Zoom. I don't know why. Yeah. So why is continuous learning? Why is it crucial? Why is it crucial in the AI and data space, right? So, and I think I've made mention of the first point, right? So, rapid advancement in technology, algorithm, and methodology. And I think for my mentorship, during my free time, I try and mentor people, most times a paid mentorship or a private in the structured body kind of mentorship. And one of the complaints I get from most of my students I get to mentor is we are trying to learn this at this point, but before learning this particular chunk of thing, there is another new concept out there. There is something new. There's something new. How do I balance it? I think that's one of the major concepts, basically. So when we look at rapid advancement in technology and algorithm, right, methodology. So this is one of the major issues they're always telling me, like, how do we balance it and all that? But one thing I get to tell them, sorry, can you see my screen? I think something came up on my screen now.
Yeah, we can now.
You can see it now, right? Okay, let me put it on the
Yeah.
slideshow. Okay, so one thing I try to tell them is learning is in phases, right? So you can't learn everything at once. Everyone is still learning, right? So the basic thing you think is important for you, for instance, I'm working in a fintech space, right? And the tool we use, for instance, is SQL, Power BI, and maybe a bit of scripting on Jupyter Notebook and all that. Those are my major core tools that I'm using. I should try and learn very well in those tools before jumping into something else. Maybe I'm trying to learn a machine learning model, deep learning, whatsoever, right? So those are more or less like my basic or primary tool I use on my day-to-day job. Only probably you're ready to lose your job, right? So try and leverage on that and learn on that. Know what is happening on a daily basis before you say you want to go over and learn some other new skills, right? So I tell people to basically don't get overwhelmed. Definitely, you get overwhelmed with so much of stuff happening out there in terms of oh, there is this, there is this, there is this, there is this, but you can't lay hold of everything at once. One thing you can do is be patient with yourself, right? In as much you are patient with yourself, try and constantly learn towards it. So if you look at the impact of hardware advancement, so look at the likes of AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, and the likes. Maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, we probably didn't have so much of during existent, but it wasn't as loud as it is now, right? So these are the probably one of the cloud architecture tools you would, of course, you'll be expected to know as a data practitioner or a data expert, right? And it's very, very important for you to make sure you are learning it. And I tell people most times a data scientist or a data analyst or a data engineer is not necessarily the person that know how to use all the tools, right? In my own opinion, right, I would say a data scientist or a data practitioner is the one that knows the best to use at a particular point in time. Working as a BI intelligent analyst, the lead analyst, for instance, one thing I've come across is most times is people are not so concerned about your process. When I mean process, I'm talking about the end users, basically. So one thing you have to do is, what tools can I use best for this, right? I might have 5 or 6 options of what I can use, but which is going to be the fast and which is going to be the best and most effective at this point in time. So another one I will speak on is the risks of obsolescence without ongoing learning. So one thing we kind of overlook most times is this, basically. So there is this word that we use, basically. Maybe people put lackadaistic sometimes in learning, basically, right? So I just stayed here, I'm doing work, I'm not trying to improve myself. And I give people this instance. One of the companies I used to work during my early time of internship, yeah, we just used Excel, to trust me. And it was a company that probably worth over $500 million. I'm not going to mention the name, right? And they were doing tons of transaction in Nigeria and some bigger part of Europe. I think Portugal, Poland, and one other country. They're doing tons of transaction, and we are majorly using only Excel for our decision. At that point, I just had to tell myself, you know what, I'm going to leave here because I'm not learning. It took me a bit of time, but I genuinely did, and I left there because I was not learning, right? So one issue we face most times is we are not learning, and our environment, work environment, sometimes do not permit us to learn. What do I mean that does not permit us to learn? I might resume to a place as a data analyst, and in less than 3 months, I'm like, you know what, I want to switch to data engineering, and my organization is telling me there's no room like that. Like, you have to stick to this. So sometimes it affects our learning pace. And of course, I tell people to try and learn outside of your organization or your work environment, sort of, in order to improve yourself. I'm just going to be fast with this slide, basically. All right. So key learning strategies, right? So what are more or less like the key learning strategies? So these are one of, from my own personal experience, I try to coin all this out, basically. So set specific learning goals. So I've seen people, beginning of the year, most times, very beginning of the year, some people come and meet me, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this and this and this and this. And they'll tell you, and in the space of 3 months, they want to learn Python. In the space of 2 months, they want to learn SQL. They want to learn Azure. They want to learn BigQuery and the likes. But one thing I tell people is, you can't, what is it called? You can't learn all those in a particular short time. You have to put a time frame to it, basically. You have to put a time frame to it, set a specific goal, and you don't have to be hard to yourself. I think it's one thing I tell people with the whole issues happening in Nigeria, the lights, internet issue, and all that. You don't have to be hard to yourself. But one thing I tell people is try and find the accountability partner, someone you can be accountable to. I want to learn this within the space of this. How can I go about this? Right? Using myself as an example, when I started learning, maybe my first 7 months, 8 months, I never knew how to use Python, right? So I had to reach out to someone on Twitter. Yeah, she gave me some material to read up and all that, a PDF. So I think after doing that, maybe for 3 or 4 months, and learning is in pace, right? So don't be harsh to yourself that I'm trying to learn this particular concept. It's taking time, this and this and this. Learning is in phase, right? So you have to adapt to it, basically. So importance of aligning your goal with career ambition and industry strength. So I think this is what some people kind of underestimate rather, most times, right? I'm working in a banking institution now, and I don't know how the banks work, but I know in banks, for instance, there are ranks in banks, SBO, BO, and the likes, right? And you are not aligning what you are learning to what is currently happening in the bank. I'm working in the bank. I'm working as a data analyst, for instance, in the audit team, for instance. I should be familiar with some audit concepts, right? And this is what some people try and throw away sometimes. So if you look at the field, basically, so you have to become a master in what you are doing. Understand the concepts, understand what is happening in that industry you are finding yourself, and try and understand what is happening, the trends in that industry. And this is what most times we just try and shadow around it. Maybe because, of course, I understand how Nigeria is. Some of us are trying to get 2, 3 gigs, which is very fine, but sometimes it's very important for us to just lay hold on some important trend in the industry and be a master in it, basically. So structuring goals with timelines and measurable checkpoints. So this is more or less like having, I think I've said it, having an accountability partner, someone that can always check up on you. And there was something I used here, a framework, SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. All right. And I tell people, don't be hard on yourself if you can't meet up with that standard for some reasons. You are not able to meet up with it. It's totally fine, right? But one thing I tell people is set a timeline, set a target time at which you want to learn. Set a target time at which you want to learn, basically. So from there, you can match it up and, keep learning, basically. Learning is in phases. I want you to put that in your right hand. Learning through real world data set and problem solving, right? So with the help of a lot of data, we have the likes of Kaggle, World Bank, Data Bank, and all that. You can see real data sets to learn with. You can see competitions and all that. We are going to get into that, competition and all that. And one thing I tell people most times, which maybe in the data space, one of the things I've noticed most times is we are very lucky. I can decide to focus in climate. I can decide to focus in sustainability. Every area you want to specify, you want to specialize in, right? You definitely see data of real world problems you can always solve in that particular instances. One other thing I would mention here is engaging in platform like Kaggle, joining a community in learning is very important. Have a community, and thanks to the organizer of Data First, which is very, very important, right? Join a community where you can learn, you can see people to push you up. The likes of Data Science Nigeria and Alagomeji, there are different communities, right? Maybe a Slack group, go out for volunteering program where you can learn, right? So going to volunteer also is a learning phase, right? So you get to meet people and all that. So don't just stay in the comfort of your house and say you are learning. Build a portfolio also. Post your portfolio. One thing I would tell people is my first job, I reached out to the company. That was the company I was some years ago. I reached out to them on LinkedIn that, I was looking for a job and all that. So, but maybe they were reluctant, but for some reason, the person I reached out to just saw my portfolio and she was blown away. She was like, oh, wow, you did this. The next day I got a mail, come to our office, they sent me the address, bam. And that was how I got the job because of the portfolio. And I think when I resumed, I just randomly asked her, like, why did you, I've been sending tons of CVs up and nobody's replying me. So why did you reply and all that? She said it was my portfolio that actually blew her off. Like, and I was like, oh, wow. So something it was that. So imagine I don't have any portfolio. And I think it's a mistake. I see a lot of people sending CVs and all that to me. Like, oh, I'm looking for a job and all that. But you don't genuinely have like a portfolio, which some people do, but at the end of the day, it's just all rough and all that. So this is one of the things we have to focus on most times. So I think I've mentioned this also. Join a community, research community, volunteer. Right. So one new interest that I picked recently is writing articles. Right. So I never knew the impact of writing articles. Trust me. So I saw a tweet by one of my boss on Twitter, Wale. I think he's in the UK, saying there's a research paper going on if you want to join. So I reached out to him. He added me to the community, and it's been an amazing community. So try and volunteer, join a research group. Writing articles, trust me, is going to open doors. So this is probably one area most of us don't focus on. I was speaking to someone in the UK in the research space. He told me he literally got a job, or maybe a 10 years experience job, a senior ML job, because he wrote some articles. And you know what, when he got to the interview room, he told them a bit about himself, the articles he has written, and he sent the link on the call here, and they were like, oh, you literally wrote this. And immediately they gave him the job, right? So this is probably, like, in my opinion, in the next 2-3 years, this is a role that you'd actively see in company and institution employing people for research roles in data space, basically ML research, data analyst research, and whatsoever. And you can build your potentials in this place by writing research papers, definitely. And maybe in Nigeria, it's quite tough. I mean, some people will tell you to pay money to publish on their web page, their stuff like that, $10, $20, which of course, for some of us, it might be a bit of a problem. But if it's something you can do, I would implore you, give it a shot. So utilizing online platform and resources, right, for advanced AI and data science learning. So one thing I would tell people, and I'm a testimony to that, all through my learning, there was no money for me to pay, right? So I literally had to scramble through the internet to get materials and all that. Up until then, I was able to save a bit of amount to take some course, right? So try and maximize the information, maximize now the information you get online, right? When you are trying to learn, try and make sure you are using those informations. We have the likes of Coursera, Udacity, YouTube is enough, right? So you can always use this to learn topics like reinforcement learning and all that. I told someone recently, when I was learning machine learning, I didn't pay a dime for it, right? I went on YouTube. There was this Indian course I took. I can't remember his name. I literally downloaded the whole series, like 45 series with its own notes. The man created a GitHub account for it. So I had the notes there. I was using everything to practice. So we have so much of information online you can leverage on. Join a GitHub community, join an open source community, right? I'm not a master at open source, but trust me, there are a lot of guys doing great stuff in the open source space, right? And I think I've not get to see a lot of data people in the open source space. Mostly they always tied towards software engineering and the likes, right? But this is one place you can explore. We have the likes of NORAD in that space. I'm trying to work for names on my head, but I can't remember. But this is space you definitely can invest in, basically. All right. So just in conclusion of this, before we move to the next one, try and join a community. Try and make sure you're active online. Try and make sure you join a community. There are reference or recommendations I've gotten from people in some community. They're like, I want to do this, or you can reach out to this, and all that. So, and I tell people this, I'm an introvert, right? So introvert by default. I just want to stay in my house, sleep, do my work and all that. But trust me, it's over that, right? So try, in as much you would say, oh, I'm an introvert, I don't like networking, let me just stay and all that. No, it's wrong. Try and network, try and reach out, join community, and try and make sure you are seeing your work, your footprints can be seen, right? So balancing theory with practical application in AI, right? So most times, most of the complaint I get from people is, oh, I'm trying to learn, but I'm not getting a real world data, I'm not getting this. Trust me, no company will probably want to release their data to you. That's to start with, right? So try and leverage on what you are seeing out there. Try and make sure, just tell yourself, give yourself this mentality of what I'm working with is a real life situation, right? Is a real life problem. And when you get to join community, and once again, thanks to the organizers of Data First, right? The hackathons, you can join. And I think the results have been released, right? So those kinds of projects, you can use that as a real life project. If I'm going for an interview, I can say I was on a team of 5 data analysts or data scientists, and we worked on this project and all that, right? So these are examples you can use basically. Another one I would say is mentorship, right? So I'm very big on mentorship, and over the past 2-3 years, I've probably mentored maybe over 500 to 1,000 people in data science space, right? And majorly across some institutions like NIOD Bootcamp, Code First Girls in the UK, Tech for Dev, right? And quite a number of them, right? Someone is using an emoji. So it's something I'm passionate about, maybe because I kind of knew how tough it was for me when I was learning. So I saw is this struggle I'm going to say I kind of faced when I was learning, right? So I just had to just tell myself, you know what, I'm going to put in work in making sure a lot of people are doing this. And I think I'm happy. Maybe 2 of the students I kind of mentored, I saw them, they would also be speaking. I was like, oh, great, this is very amazing, right? So try and mentor, try and teach is probably one of the best ways to learn and to teach yourself again, right? So teaching as a strategy is a reinforcing knowledge, right? So when I get to teach, I'm trying to reinforce my knowledge basically. So it's just more or less like a concept in machine learning, reinforcement learning basically. So when you teach, you are also learning, right? So it's more or less like a two-way channel. So developing leadership skills through mentorship and guiding order. So this is very, very important. And I'm probably more particular about it because I'm an introvert. Introvert, literally, I would just want to stay in my house, sleep, open my laptop, work. I don't go out. If you are telling me in the office you're having an outing, I won't come. That's the real truth, right? But one way I've been able to develop my leadership skills basically is through mentorship, right? So when you have people that reach out to you and you're able to mentor them, give them advice, directly or indirectly, trust me, you are building your leadership skills, right? And definitely you're also positioning yourself for senior roles and all that, right? So I think we're out of time. I'll try and be fast with this. So staying ahead with the trend
Yeah,
in AI and data.
yeah,
Sorry?
so we have like 3 minutes more to wrap up so that we can use the remaining 5 minutes to answer questions.
Yeah, sure. I'll be fast with it. Yeah, sure. So staying ahead with the trend in AI and data science. So one of the major way basically is to have like a business knowledge. I mean, communicating with people. And outside of that, I'll tell people just be active online, be active on LinkedIn, be active on Twitter. I don't post so much on Twitter. I don't post on LinkedIn, but trust me, I'm very active. I know what is happening. And one thing I do again is to subscribe to different articles online, right? So you get a daily update of what is happening, right? So for instance, outside of the data space, I'm very big on tech, right? Anything tech. So I have some subscription I've done. So I get a list of what is happening in the tech industry, what is happening in the startup industry, what is happening in the startup industry majorly, yeah, and all that. So this is one way you can keep up and know what is happening basically in that industry, right? So I'm sure with this few words of mine, you've been able to learn so much. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Sorry for the
Yeah.
short time. If you have any question, please unmute your mic and ask. We have just 5 more minutes to wrap up this session. Thank you. I think I saw a question in the chat. It's about, can you expatiate more on how a data analyst can write research paper? That's
Okay.
from
So okay, yeah, okay. I'm trying to open the comment section too, right? So there is not two way about it, right? So writing research paper is not restricted to what field you are, right? So you can write research paper on anything, right? So the impact of data, for instance, I'm just trying to look for a random topic in my head, right? The impact of data in finance, right? The impact of adequate data in building a dashboard, for instance, right? So those are ways you can write papers. So you can, one thing I would tell people most times to do is go online and look for research paper before you start writing any, right? So go online, look for research paper of people who has written research in any field. It doesn't necessarily have to be in data field, right? People that have written research paper and see how they went about it. I just started writing too, right? So I'm quite in that space. But my mentor, the one person who's mentoring me, kind of most times he drops links to different articles you can read. And one thing I would say again is try and read up articles. So if you are the kind of person that don't read, try and put in time, devote time to reading basically, right? So when you read, you become better in writing when you read. So that's my honest opinion. When you read, you become better in writing. Yeah, so that is just it basically.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, Abbas, you can go now.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you, David, for the speech. My question is that I'm an aspiring machine learning engineer. So the thing is, I want to ask, we actually need to go into data analysis because I've been seeing some roadmap for data science and machine learning that requires, data analysis or me learning SQL, Excel, I don't know, and other things for data analysis. So I want to ask, do I actually need to go in depth into all those ones since I'm aspiring to be a machine learning engineer? Or I just focus on machine learning directly, or do I actually need to go from data analysis to data science, then to machine learning? Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for that question. It's quite funny, right? But I totally understand that question. So there, in my opinion, I would say there's no one way you're going about it. But most times, speaking from experience, I would rather say you start from the least or the bottom, right? And you build yourself up. Speaking from experience, when I started, I was probably more into data analysis, right? So picking up data on Excel, analyzing it. I moved to making use of SQL or SQL, whichever one you want to call it, querying data and all of that. So the reason why I'm saying this is, so when I start working as a machine learning engineer, I have a vast knowledge, right? So I've not just stick towards machine learning. I have quite a number of friends that are software engineer and they move to machine learning. They don't have some concept or basic understanding of data. So in my opinion, try and go through that process and build yourself up. If I'm not saying you get a job on it, try and just learn basics on it, data analysis, data visualization. In as much I want to focus on ML at the later part of my career, or that is what I want to settle for. So just try and have those knowledge basically. So that's one thing that's my advice basically for you.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yakub, you can go next, and then Daniel. And I think all of you should answer ask the question at the same time, so that you can just answer everything at once. Yakub, Daniel, and Abdulaziz.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is Yakub. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can go ahead.
Yeah, perfectly. We
Okay.
can hear you.
So yeah, David, thank you very much for the
Hello.
and ML and AI is an evolving field, and is the type of field that you have to stay in ahead. You have to constantly learn and all. So how do you ensure that you learn, and how do you ensure that you stay in vogue and everything without being overwhelmed? Because there's a lot of information in the data space. So how do you ensure that you do all that you learn without being overwhelmed? Thank you.
Okay, so that's quite, I think I spoke on that also, right? So one thing I tell myself is there is so much of information out there on the internet, right? So you have to pick the information you want at the end of the day. You pick what you want, what you want to use, basically, right? So one thing I tell people is having this fixed mindset of this is what I'm doing, or this is what I want to do, right? So in as much I'm saying I have this fixed mindset, do not necessarily mean I have to be rigid about it. If, for instance, I'm saying I want to learn regression analysis today and all that, but tomorrow I'm saying this thing quite look interesting, I probably need to learn it, right? I can divert my attention to it. But at the end of the day, one just have to have this high concentration level, basically. And that's one thing I'm going to tell you. Have this high concentration level. And I know maybe for beginners, most times it's good to be confused and say, you know what, I do know what I want to do. But one thing I would also say to that is try and have someone you are probably accountable to. What do I mean by that? You don't have to go and bug the person every time, right? I might say, oh, today I want to learn this. And my coach or mentor is telling me, you know what, don't learn this, learn this. So that is more or less like someone that's gone ahead of you. So that is one thing I would want to tell people to leverage on. Try and have maybe a network of friends too, right? If you probably can't get mentor, a network of friends where you kind of learn together, basically. So in the multitude of people, there's counsel. You get what I'm saying, right? So when you have people like that, you probably, or directly or indirectly, you get counsel and you get right guidance, basically. So you can't just necessarily jump on everything you're seeing on the internet. Yeah, basically. So that's more or less my 1 cent to the person that asked the question. I think that was Yakub, right? So it's good to see you on the call, Yakub. Yeah. So yeah, the next question.
David, thank you.
Okay, I think we are out of time, but what we can do is, David, can you share your LinkedIn URL to the chat so that they can connect with you and ask more and more
So
questions?
I don't know if they don't have access to the slide.
Okay, can you help me with the slide, or you can just paste the URL to the slides? Alarm is beeping me.
Okay,
Just
I'm
help me
going to
paste-
do this. So I'm going to drop my URL and this URL of the
The slides will also
call
be
for you.
shared with participants after the event.
Yeah. So it will also be shared to everybody. So let's connect to session 2 for those that are interested in joining us in session 2. The room is available for all of us to join. I'm going to stop recording now. And thank you so much, David, for walking us through that. Even my own notes here is like filled with things that I didn't think I was going to learn today. So it's really an honor to have you all here. Let's head to so go to the session outline and pick.
So I
the
dropped.
So I just drop it in the chat here for anybody that wants to join session 2. You can come and meet us there. Thank you so much and see you all. Bye.